Welcome to Talk. My name is Eddie Marmolejo. Along with my co-host Jaime Moreno, we created this conservative podcast to bring facts to the issues America faces today. Left-wing bashing? That's too easy, and that's not what we do. Instead, Jaime and I tackle the issues, analyze them, and give our opinions through a conservative perspective. So if you want to join two conservative Latinos on this journey, sit back, crank up the volume, and let's talk.
Thank you for tuning into your weekly broadcast of Talk. We are your host, Eddie Marmolejo.
And Jaime Moreno.
America, once again, is divided. Not like it needed more division, but apparently America had to choose between two chicken sandwiches. You had to choose Popeyes or Chick-fil-A. Well, all that was going on, and I hope you had your chicken sandwiches. We had 6 2020 Democratic presidential candidates drop out. Okay? We would like to commend them as their message, which was America must democratically remove a dictator from office. Because apparently in America, you can also democratically vote a dictator into office, but, nor here nor there. But for now, let's pay tribute to these candidates.
So, we want to thank these candidates for the willingness to go ahead and try to receive the nomination for their party, even though they had no chance of making it to the nomination. But you know what? We'll give them props for trying. I've been there before. You know what? You gave it your all. But you know what? Let's focus on to foreign affairs. Not even foreign affairs. Let's talk about immigration, right? It's one of the biggest things in the news headlines, especially in the Latino community. Every single day, all you hear is what's going on with immigration, what the Trump administration is doing in regards to immigration, and how the Trump administration is dealing with immigration. And as well, the next debate, as you know, will be hosted by Univision in cooperation with the other U.S. channels. And I know one of the biggest topics they're going to talk about is immigration issues. So before we go on, we want to clarify that Mexico is starting to do something very, very different. The new president, AMLO, who was elected last year with a high number of popular vote, is starting to enforce many laws. One of which is trying to cut down on crime, especially on narcotics crime and organized crime. He's sending out the National Guard and so on and so forth. But Mexico is also turning another enforcement mechanism and enforcing certain laws that they haven't enforced before. And that enforcement has to do with immigration. Over the weekend, Mexico started their first wave of enforcement with the immigration, especially those who are passing through Mexico in the caravans. But Eddie, can you give us more details on what's going on in Mexico or what happened over the weekend?
So, over the weekend, Mexico immigration authorities basically raided 371 Central Americans. They were captured as they were walking through Chiapas. Basically, they just did a raid. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, this led to many accusations of misconduct by immigration authorities.
The Mexican immigration.
But Mexican. And then, let's make that clear. Mexican immigration authorities. Similar to what we hear here in the United States when illegal aliens are detained. Mm-hmm. Now, That is interesting because in Mississippi, out of all places, like he was like, I mean, I gotta tell you.
I don't know. I was like, when he told me Mississippi, there was about 700 people that were raided and detained by ICE. I was like, wait, Mississippi? Like the deepest South Mississippi? He said, yes. I was like, nah. I can't. Mississippi's not even close to the border. Or if it is, it's like very little. But I think Texas is the only one close to the border. So I didn't believe him at first. Because I was like, how the heck are they going to detain that many immigrants?
So I showed him the article, I showed him the report, right? And he's like, oh, okay, I guess. Yeah, whatever. So this report was conducted by my favorite immigration pundit, Jorge Ramos.
Oh, the expert in immigration issues.
Okay, so he's like, this is one of the biggest raids in American history. I mean, we had to go back to almost the War of 1848. I'm like, wow, dude.
He did say that. I was like, wow, the War of 1812?
No, 1848.
Oh, 1848.
1812 was
Americans
versus British. But anyway, so 1848, I was like, oh, okay.
Is that when the United States invaded Mexico?
I don't know who shot first. But
anyways, that's a whole different.
That's a whole
Look
different
it up in
debate.
history. I just know that 1848 was the year that the United States bought all the Southwest from Mexico.
Sure. Yeah, he's right. But, anyways. But you gotta get me on tangents I don't want to get into.
My bad. Let's go.
So Jorge Ramos is like, oh, it's the biggest raid in American history since 1848. And I'm like, oh, okay, bro, what does this have to do with? So he's in there, and of course, he's like, well, we have the family here. He had two guests on, and he's asking him, so what happened? And the guests go and tell him, yeah, we were working. ICE officials come in. Basically, they treated us badly. And what did they do? Basically, they tell them to take your mask off, get on the ground, standard operating procedures. But apparently, to all of these people, this was cruel and unusual punishment or cruel and unusual treatment, however you want to call it. But you start to see the similarity narratives. Illegal aliens get detained. Somehow there's always cruelty involved. Mm-hmm. Anywho, Jorge Ramos then goes on and asks him, so what would you tell Trump supporters, and what would you tell President Trump about your situation? Do you think it's fair and so far? Because they say that you don't belong here and you broke the law.
Now, we have to remember, just to clarify, that this interview is all in Spanish. Okay, this is for Univision broadcast, which is a Spanish-speaking network here in the United States. So this whole interview is happening in Spanish. Okay, and the tactic that Jorge Ramos is using, he's trying to speak for them. So he's asking them questions, and they're obviously answering honest. Right, you can tell that this couple, the mom and dad, are speaking honestly about their situation. But you see how Jorge Ramos is trying to put words in their mouth.
No, he's trying to lead them to his answer.
Lead them to what he wants them to answer without him actually saying, answer this, right? So, I think the first question that he asked him is that, did you break the law, right?
Yes.
Did you break the law? That's the first answer. That's the first question that Jorge Ramos answered, or asked, of the father. And what did the father say?
Yes. Look, like he says, we kind of broke the law. There's no kind of broke the law. You either broke the law.
No, he actually admitted he broke the law.
He broke the law.
He admits that he broke the law.
So, he broke the law, but he said he did it because he wanted a better future for his family. He came here to work and all that, to do the jobs that nobody wanted. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, I know that's an argument that's been stated before, but for when we try to understand the immigration debate, it's, did you break the law or not, first of all?
Yeah.
And he said no. I mean, he said yes.
He said yes.
He said yes. But then it gets more interesting. The conversation gets more interesting.
It really does get interesting. As he's speaking, he's saying that he tells Jorge Ramos that he's been in the country for 11 years illegally, right? And during that time frame of 11 years, he's been working. And what are the working conditions he faced for 11 years?
So he didn't get minimum wage. He got no vacation or PTO, whatever you call it at your work. And basically
worked under minimum wage, right?
Worked under minimum wage, no vacation time, and
even himself, he admitted that they didn't respect the laws, the labor laws.
So the owner of this establishment, where did not respect labor laws, he did not respect because he said they didn't apply to him. Well, yeah, we know. That's what we're trying to tell you. That's why he wasn't protected by laws, because you crossed the country illegally.
And this also leads us to one of the biggest debates that we have here, in not against, but Well, actually, not against, but in limiting the amount of illegal immigration is because, just like this gentleman has proposed, they don't have any rights. They're abused. They're overworked. They have no rights. They have no. They don't have to abide by labor laws because they're here illegally. And
right.
even this man admits, you know what? I've been here for 11 years. Mm-hmm. I had no benefit from the law, the labor laws. That benefit from we can even say that maybe he didn't get his breaks like he did. Or maybe he did get breaks, but not as much as he supposed to. Or we don't know the details, but he pretty much says that he didn't get all the benefits as any working American, right? Yeah. So that's one of our arguments against illegal immigration. You come here to work, which okay, we understand. But because you're here illegally, you are being exploited by whoever is hiring you.
Yes.
Especially if it's under the table and paid by cash.
Yeah. Which is what the previous administration was talking about, exploitations. Well, many Democrats have talked about the exploitations. Republicans have talked about work exploitation, right? And both parties have tried to combat that, but have failed miserably. Now, I just said 11 years. So this guy was at the latter end of Bush, all Obama, and now beginning of Trump. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So majority of his time here in the United States was under the Obama administration.
So and it's interesting to hear that, but that's not what really got to us. But of course, it's what he said towards the end of the interview that I was like, really, really. Here we go again. This did not take long.
So when he was speaking this, right, he was telling Jorge Ramos his story, his work history. What did Jorge Ramos translate for him?
So basically, he's trying to say, who's at fault?
Yeah.
Who's at fault for all this mishappenings? Like, yeah, well, it's ICE's fault. It's ICE's fault that I'm in this situation. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, is really? It's ICE's fault that they're following the laws. They raided your company and you got caught. So I'm like, you were here for 11 years and you got unlucky one day and you're blaming ICE.
And not only that, Jorge Ramos says that the reason he's been abused and exploited by his business is because of ICE.
Yeah. And I'm sitting there, well, you've broken the law for 11 years, you finally get caught. How is that ICE's fault? ICE does what it does.
The exploitation should be blamed on the business.
Yeah.
Not ICE or the Trump administration.
Yeah, and it's similar to what you heard in Mexico, too, over the weekend. Mothers were like, we're walking all this way. We shouldn't deserve to be rounded up, but we're trying to get to a better country and, and all that. But, again, you can't call cruelty if you're breaking the law and you get caught. Mm-hmm. You can't blame ICE for you being in the country 11 years and all that. And overall, you cannot blame Trump's policies on this. Mm-hmm. Like I said, this man has been in the country for 11 years illegally. Trump got elected in 2016.
So 4 of those years are small compared to the 11.
Yeah.
Right? So what we're trying to say is that the whole immigration debate, the whole immigration scandal and the hype and the fear tactics, right? Especially by the Spanish-speaking news outlets and the Spanish-speaking channels, is scaring Latinos into believing that the big bad wolf or the boogeyman or the Llorona or the Cucuy is Donald J. Trump and the Republicans, right?
Donald J. Trump changed genders and all that? I mean, call him La Llorona?
Well, gender binary, I don't know what the heck. The liberals. Any boogeyman or any Cucuy or any scary figure that Latinos have in our culture is Trump. It's all embodied in Donald J. Trump and the Republicans, right? Now, what Mexico is doing is they're enforcing their own immigration laws. And the president of Mexico said, we will now enforce our immigration law. He even said that we will not give these people free pass just to walk into Mexico as they please without any regard for their own sovereignty. The Secretary of Mexican Immigration said that they will no longer tolerate these migrants coming into the country, just marching across the country of Mexico, demanding all these privileges, demanding to be fed and be watched over just to get to the United States. But as what's more interesting, not only about the Mississippi raid and how Jorge Ramos try to divert the issue, is what let Mexicans believe and what's the statements on Mexicans. Now, the Washington Post and NPR made a report, and they interviewed Mexicans, and they asked for their opinion about the caravan and the migrant, pretty much the migrant caravan. And what was the results of those, Eddie?
Okay, so you've heard, and I've shown this to you too. The Washington Post poll that was done with La Reforma in Mexico, big newspaper in Mexico, right?
La Reforma is one of the biggest.
Yeah, so they say that over 50% of Mexicans do not want illegal immigrants in their country.
Wait. 50% of Mexicans don't want... Over 50% of Mexicans
yes.
don't want these immigrant caravans marching through their country.
Yes. So that was a poll conducted in July. But check this one out. There was also another poll that I did not even know about. It was done by also another Mexican newspaper in October of 2018. So this is right at the beginning where the caravans started coming. You start getting the news and all that. As soon as it loads, I'll tell you what the question was. And it asked the following question. Okay, load. Okay, well, it's loading.
But pretty much, the Washington Post and NPR give reports that Mexicans, right? Yeah. So 50%, what does that mean? What does that mean? 50% of Mexicans don't want this migrant caravan marching through the city or through their country. Does that make Mexicans xenophobic? And do they make Mexicans white supremacist and racist?
Does that make AMLO a white supremacist? Because he said he wants to enforce his immigration laws and he's no longer going to allow people to walk freely through his country.
So
that sounds a lot like you know who.
That's enough. Put down the mic.
Between Trump and AMLO in regards to this issue sound pretty familiar, but pretty similar. But as you were saying, what does the Mexican newspaper say?
So this is from Universal, and the question is, check this out, okay? Do you agree with the Mexican government stopping immigrants from passing through our country illegally?
Can you repeat the question again? Okay, so I want the audience, our viewers to hear.
I'm translating here, so the translation is kind of off. I do apologize.
We will still post the link on just so you guys can read it for yourselves and translate if you need to.
So it's this: do you agree with the Mexican government basically stopping illegal immigrants from continuing in our country illegally, like walking through the country illegally? Okay, so from October 2018. 48% said no. To April of this year, that number rose to 58.8%. And as of June of this year, we are at 61.5% agreeing that these people need to go back where they came from, and Mexico needs to enforce its immigration laws.
61%.
61.5%.
Wow.
This is a Mexican newspaper. This is not Fox News. This is not Breitbart, Daily Caller, Daily Wire, Talk.
That's not even us.
That's not even us.
This is El Universal, one of the largest newspapers in Mexico, is reporting that 61.5% of Mexicans do not agree or do not approve that this migrant caravan is crossing through the country illegally. And what are one of the things that they want them to do?
So basically, NPR, right? They quoted remember when they were in Tijuana?
Yeah. So the migrant caravan came to Tijuana. And they posted there, right, for some time.
And they were like, so
demanding to be let in the United States.
Check this article out by NPR. Again, articles will be posted so you guys can read it. So, NPR writes, the message for the migrant caravan was clear from the marches on Sunday in Tijuana, Mexico. This again was written November 19, 2018. So this was already a month after the Universal article came out. We want the caravan to go. They are invading us. A 62-year-old woman, Patricia Reyes, said, right? They should have to come into Mexico correctly, legally, but they came in like animals. That's a Mexican resident in Tijuana. Imagine if Donald Trump has said that sentence alone. The man will be brought up with impeachment articles as soon as that article was published.
I mean, he's already getting impeachment articles.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I'm saying, I mean,
the news media, the mainstream news would consider Donald Trump, and they still consider him to this day, racist, xenophobic, anti-immigration, anti-immigrant, anti-Latino, anti-diversity, anti-people of color. But yet, in Mexico, okay, which is be considered brown, which is considered minority in terms of race, and can be considered Latino themselves, okay, disagree. And they don't want this. They want the migrant caravan to come through Mexico legally, correctly, to stop the invasion and put Mexico first.
Yeah, so check this.
That's our Mexicans.
Yeah.
That's not even white nationalists. That's not even white supremacists. That's not even KKK. That's not even like the alt-right. That's Mexicans.
Yeah, I want to keep going on this article because it's demonstrators held sign reading "No illegals, no to the invasion, Mexico first," like you mentioned. Many wore the country's red, white, and green national soccer jerseys and vigorously waved the Mexican flags. The crowd often slipped into chants of Tijuana and Mexico, and they sang the national anthem several times. I swear, if these were Americans wearing
the protesters
were American, waving American flags, American gear, and everything, they would say it was Nuremberg. I can guarantee it. They will say this is Nuremberg. I can see AOC, Ilhan Omar, and all that saying.
The mainstream media, they would all say the rise of white supremacists outlined by this protest, just like they did in Charlottesville.
So let's continue. The march is a foreboding sign for the migrants who have formed caravans to cross Mexico in hopes of reaching the United States. Many, but not all, of the migrants have come to Tijuana, which borders San Diego, request asylum in the U.S. They come primarily from Honduras, though some are from Central America. A number of asylum seekers say they can return home from receiving threats from major gangs, but as we all know, the process could take months, so forth, and the article goes on. But what is the point that we're trying to make? That why is it that when let's just say we Latinos, talk about, we oppose illegal immigration, for what reason? The guy from Univision told you, look, I'm a low-skilled worker, I'm undocumented, and I don't get paid by labor laws, right? I don't get minimum wage. We have said this constant on MM Talk that illegal immigration is a threat to low-skilled American workers because of that reason. And he admits it, like, look, I don't get paid, but these are jobs that nobody wants to do. These are low-skilled jobs. And when we talk about that, we're considered coconuts, we're considered so forth and so forth. I'm like, no, dude, this is the reality of it. But when we also talk about the message, is like, you see what we're talking about? You're giving the wrong message. Mm-hmm. Jorge Ramos is giving the wrong message. And he points the finger to the wrong people. Mm-hmm. He pointed at ICE. I just told you, this man has been in the country for 11 years, illegally. And
his status, his work pay, his rights under labor law, his work conditions weren't improved in 11 years.
Yeah.
Even though he was here to take low-skilled labor and get paid as a low-skilled labor, his working conditions did not improve. His living conditions did not improve, even though his method was to be here for economic opportunities and for work. Mm-hmm. So we understand the factor that people want to come to the United States to work. We get it. We understand, yes. United States, the dollar is worth more in Latin America, based on the currency of each country. It's worth more. It has more weight. People come here to work to send money back to their home countries. We get it. But what are they working for? They're being exploited. They're being mistreated. They're not being respected. So it's not helping them economically in the long term. It's not helping them to get out of poverty. It's keeping them in the poverty level.
Yeah. So
So like Eddie said, low-skilled American workers. Now, low-skilled American workers can be just regular U.S. citizens and also residents, legal workers, legal immigrants also can fill those seats up, right? But when you have legal residents and U.S. citizens who want to take these underpaid, terrible jobs, they all want benefits. They all want high wages. We all want good wages, benefits, insurance, and be respected under the law, right? But that costs money. Correct?
So when we look at interviews like this, it's like, Jorge, instead of blaming ICE, instead of blaming Donald Trump, why not ask the following question? Is the resentment against illegal immigration, in fact, that the threat of illegal immigration is threatening low-paying, unskilled jobs? And the Americans that are seeking low-pay, unskilled jobs cannot get jobs. Therefore, you may have some sort of resentment towards illegal immigrants. And maybe that's why they're supporting Donald Trump, because they want equal opportunity in the workforce, even if it's a low-skilled working job. And why not point the finger to Congress? That's who fixes it.
Hello, Congress makes the laws.
Jorge,
they pass laws.
Jorge, what did Obama tell you in 2013? It's Congress. It's not me who fixes the job. You didn't listen then. You're not going to listen now. But you keep telling Univision and Telemundo keep telling you that somehow it's the executive branch that will fix this issue. No, it's not.
That's a lie.
And until people like Jorge Ramos.
The lie detector says that is a lie.
And until people like Jorge Ramos start pointing the finger towards the right people, us in the Latino community and us will continue to be misinformed. And we will keep blaming the wrong people. We will keep pushing a false narrative of racism that does not exist. Because if we are racist here as Latinos who keep pointing this out, what would you call Mexicans? What do you call AMLO? Mm-hmm. Who's saying the same thing that we are,
pretty much,
and they're foreigners,
and they're in Mexico.
They're in Mexico,
which is a Latino country, which is
ironic
community.
Because a lot of you wave the Mexican flag on pro-immigration rallies, but the Mexican government is not saying, "Well, you know what? If they'll come here legally, we will send you back." So, I mean, did we just hit a paradox? I mean, I don't know. Comment below, guys. Really, comment below. How do you feel about this? I mean, we just showed you what the Mexican government is feeling. They're talking like us, as conservatives here are talking. Okay, they're not leaning towards that open borders agenda.
Free pass, walk through the country like nobody's business. Just walk through. Yeah. It's like when someone walks through your lawn, right? Yeah. It's like people just walk through your lawn. Who cares, right? Until your lawn is damaged, right? Yeah. But then you go out there and say, hey, don't walk through my lawn, or walk around the lawn. Oh, all of a sudden you're bad, you're evil, you're bigoted because you're protecting your own lawn. Mexico is protecting their own sovereignty. Yeah. And they're noticing, and there's other reports too that we will bring up probably later on in the segment, or maybe in the next segment. I think we heard reports that there's Africans already crossing through Mexico.
There's illegally. African refugees, there's Cuban refugees.
And there's Haitian refugees in Mexico who just come in the country just illegally without any...
Well, not only that, I don't know if you saw this when they were either making marches where they closed down immigration centers, they were basically fighting.
They were fighting police, Mexican authorities and police and law enforcement. They were literally fighting because they were detaining them, they were processing them, and they didn't want to be processed. They wanted to walk through and get to the U.S. border to be able to seek asylum. So Mexico is enforcing their own immigration laws, and I think they have the right to do so. As a country, as a people, they have the right to check who is coming to the country, to check who is entering. Are they a threat? Are they not a threat? And how to keep track of them. Right? Mexico has a lot of problems on their own internally. They don't need more problems from foreigners just walking across their country like it's nothing. Like they have all the rights and privileges of walking through Mexico. So I support AMLO and his law enforcement. We support AMLO in enforcing his immigration laws. We support that administration in making things right for their own people and for their own sovereignty, right? So if any other country in the world, Europe, Africa, Asia, can do that, Mexico should be able to do the same thing.
And America too. And it should not be dwindled down to race. So honestly, I seriously want to go into the debate and bring this information. I just want to seriously sit there and ask candidate Beto O'Rourke will probably be my pick. But like, Beto, you're open for open borders. You say that Donald Trump's racist rhetoric, alleged racist rhetoric, and so forth. But what do you think about the actions taken by the current Mexican government, current AMLO administration, in deporting illegals? Well, what do you call that?
And also, what would you call Mexico racist and white supremacist because they do not agree that these illegal immigrants from South America and Central America are walking across the country? Would you consider 61% of Mexicans white supremacist and racist?
It's good questions. I mean, this is the questions you have to ask. But so I'm going to tell our viewers here and anybody who's listening, it's just when you look at immigration, honestly, if you really want to understand it, take the race card out and just look at the legal arguments, and I can promise you'll probably get a better understanding of the argument. People like Jorge Ramos, people like Jose Gabarde in Telemundo, and a lot of their pundits on the left are not going to give it to you because they want to stick to race. Everybody, and here in Eminem Talk, we're giving you the legal argument. And the legal argument is far more revealing than the racial argument.
And there's far more consequences. Now, remember, Latinos aren't the only ones in the world who want to enter the United States. We have people from every continent in the world who wants to come to the United States for a better life. Yes, there's people who want to go to other countries, but a lot of people want to come to the United States, right? So it's not only just Latinos, we also have Asians, we also have Europeans, we also have Africans, right? And when I say those names, I'm talking about the continents, right? All the continent of Asia, all the continent of Europe, all the continent of Africa, and all the continent of Africa, Asia, and Europe, right? People want to come to the United States, and we welcome them. Come on in, welcome to the United States. But it's unfair for those who are paying hundreds and hundreds and thousands of dollars to do the process right and be skipped or be put in second place because a person came to the United States illegally and they get priority over them. That's unfair for them. That's unfair, and that adds more gridlock to our immigration system.
Yeah.
So, anything else you want to add before we conclude this segment?
On immigration, no. So, I mean, pretty much we already covered it all. But
and Omar, what happened with
Omar?
Thank
you, Omar. So, check.
So, Representative Ilhan Omar.
So
right?
we just made the argument that Congress is the one to fix this, right?
Because they are the ones who need to fix.
They are the lawmakers.
They are the lawmakers. Thank you.
So, Representative Ilhan Omar.
Bright, genius, progressive face of the Democratic Party. Solution to the crisis at the border is?
Send the UN.
Send the UN. Oh my God.
I swear to God, I thought that was a Babylon Bee article. If you don't know what the Babylon Bee is, a political satire news organization.
Like the Motley Fool, like the Onion.
You like the Onion. So I swear I had to read this twice. I was like, "What?" So,
wow. First of all.
Okay, go ahead.
The argument that ICE and Border Patrol are enforcing the laws is bad, right? You're already against it, and you say that it's terrible, and they have compared immigration enforcement to Nazi concentration camps. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now they want the UN to come and help enforce. Really? I don't understand the logic from the left. Really?
So in her statement, when she said this, says we should do what any other country does by dealing with the situation in a serious way. So we have to bring in the United Nations High Commissioner on Refugees, an agency that has expertise and the training to handle massive flows of refugees humanely. So apparently, the border between the United States and Mexico is a war-torn area because you have to bring the United Nations into this whole thing. I'm like...
the UN peacemaking?
I don't mean to laugh,
hilarious,
but right. So when you read this, I was like, "Is this a?" Is this a Babylon Bee article? Like I just go into the article, right, and I'm like, and I'm like, no, she's being serious. Okay, wow. So here's the underlying message. She's a U.S. Congresswoman. Congress has the power to make laws. If she was
only branch.
So why aren't you
make laws?
So why aren't you fixing it? Why aren't you creating the legislation to fix it? You have the power, and you want outside interference. Like, look! I know what you're trying to do. Right? You're just trying to stick it in Trump. I get you. I mean, he's like,
she's making it worse.
Yeah,
she's trying to make
you want to be a citizen of the world, and you want to say that you care for everybody, so you're gonna bring the World Organization in. I'm like, come on, I mean, this is ridiculous. You're being ridiculous here. You have the power. Get with your cheater girls. All right? And let's get some legislation going.
Hello. Learn the rules of Congress. Learn how to negotiate. Learn how to get your caucus and your coalition together to be able to create solutions to the immigration problem instead of bashing and pointing fingers. So stop pointing fingers and get your hands working. You went to Congress to change things, to improve things, to be the face of progress and real solutions to the problem. Start acting, start mobilizing, start introducing legislation that's going to help the cause.
You know, I just had a realization that she will call upon the UN to fix a U.S. problem. Last time she had visitations from the UN, you know, she didn't like it.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, she hated a U.S.-led peacekeeping force, and she blamed it for killing thousands of Somalis.
The same organization that she despises for whatever happened in Somalia, she wants to bring that same organization to come and resolve the border crisis.
Well,
wow, the irony.
Make it so, number one.
It's just wow. And what I don't understand, what I'm baffled with.
Yeah,
I understand that the general electorate eats it up and sees it as, oh yes, but the elites, the intelligent, the scholars, the intellectual class of Americans are eating her words as inspiration. Really, people? Really? I don't know. I'm done with this segment right now because we're gonna go on forever on immigration.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. We plan to make it a full segment on this, but we'll discuss that details later. So right now, pretty much Mexico is gonna start to enforce their own immigration laws. Yeah. Right.
But yeah, so with that, and then let's end it with Mexico. Jaime, you got some interesting things to talk about.
Yeah, let's get out of the Mexican immigration issue because I know it's a delicate situation and a delicate subject. You know, different emotions come in play and so on and so forth. Let's talk about the trend in social media and the trend among the Democratic debate. It hasn't been in the forefront, but it's there lingering, like the elephant in the room. Yes, it's surprising.
It's surprising there hasn't been because it's like a lot of the
pretty much the Democrats are sore losers. Okay, the Democrats are sore losers. Okay.
Well, except for Elizabeth Warren, she's been outspoken on it.
Okay, true. She's always been outspoken. But we're gonna talk about the Electoral College. Mm-hmm. Now, if you guys go back and remember how in your government classes back in high school, remember?
Yeah, when Betsy Ross made that first racist flag, I called her Colin Kaepernick.
Okay, we know when America was racist and supreme racism in the entire world, we have this thing called the Electoral College. Pretty much, the Electoral College is a group. It's not a group. It's it's a group of legislators, of voters, who elect the president based on the population vote of their own state. So, to make it simple, pretty much, let's say that, California has 53 electoral votes. Why? Because it has 53 representatives, right? Since it has 53 representatives, it has 53 electoral votes. Now, if the state of California votes Republican at 51% versus 49% Democrat, all the electoral votes go to the Republican candidate, right? It doesn't go by percentages. It doesn't go by, we'll give 51% of the Electoral College votes to the Republican and the remaining balance will give it to the Democrats. No. It's win all or win none, okay? That's how the Electoral College votes. The Electoral College, then, you tally up all the numbers by each state based on the number of representatives, and the number of senators. They elect the president. They say, this is the president of the United States. This will be the president of the United States. Now, common logic says that the president should be elected by the popular vote, right? Which makes sense, right? The popular vote should vote for president. However, the Electoral College has been so successful in the 200 plus years in the United States. It's only been three instances in the entire U.S. history where the popular vote, right, is greater than the electoral vote.
Right.
In other terms, means that the Electoral College voted for the president, for a certain president, and the popular vote voted for the second candidate. So let's bring it to 2016. In 2016, the large percentage, Hillary Clinton was the Democratic nominee, received 2 million votes more than Donald J. Trump. But Donald J. Trump won the presidency based on the Electoral College, right? That is the third instance in U.S. history where such a thing happens, where the popular vote votes for a certain candidate, but that candidate does not win the Electoral College. Let me repeat, that's only happened in 3 occasions in the entire U.S. history. So that means, if we're playing odds, the Electoral College has been pretty accurate, right, throughout the U.S. history.
Right.
Now, people want to get rid of the Electoral College. Why? Because Hillary Clinton lost the presidency.
First of all, let's not say people. Let's say who.
Okay, so who?
Democrats. Okay, and people on the left.
True. The Democrats. The Democrats are pushing for this idea to get rid of the Electoral College. And why is that, Eddie? What is their argument against the Electoral College?
From who?
The Democrats.
So we take AOC's argument because, it does not allow people of color to vote. If we take Elizabeth Warren's, it's unfair because not everybody gets their right to vote and so forth, even though the term popular vote means that everybody's already voted. But, okay. That's basically the argument. One will point a racial argument. The other one says, well, it's not representative of the people's voice. The problem with that argument is the key word majority. The electoral college was created to silence majority rule and to silence the majority, the potential of rule by majority, because that is not really a true representation of the people. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, it's. I guess we have to word it differently. It's the mob rule.
Mob, thank you.
Mob
rule.
The mob ruling. So the mob to rule over the majority of the United States.
If you take the national popular vote argument, it looks
reasonable, right?
It looks reasonable. Yeah, well, the entire U.S. population, 1 vote per state. But when you look at it, why should California, who has a more larger population, have a bigger say than somebody that lives in, I don't know, New Hampshire or Vermont or the smaller states, Rhode Island?
Or even the big states with small populations, like Wyoming. Wyoming is a state with the least number of people.
So this is when we say, this is where we have the problem with the national popular vote, is that states that have larger populations in the political scheme will be more important than states with smaller populations. And that's when you don't have the representation that is being argued by people like AOC, he makes a racial argument, but I'll stick to Warren.
Well, majority of Democrats make a racial argument.
Majority of Democrats who say, well, it's like, well, not if it's no popular vote, not everybody's voice got heard. Well, no, everybody's voice got heard because they voted for the delegates that elect the president. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you don't directly vote for the president. See, that's the illusion. It's as that we're removing your direct vote for the president, therefore your voice is not heard. But what they're not telling you is that, you didn't vote for the president directly. You voted for the delegate that votes for the president, but your voice got heard. Because if it's national popular vote, do you think that President Trump or Hillary Clinton would have spent any time in Vermont, New Hampshire, Rhode Island? I mean, just as an example, of course, we all have political strategies, right? As far as the electoral college goes. But the smaller states would have little to no say over the larger populated states.
Now, and like Eddie said, it's about population.
Yeah.
Now, we have to be realistic of where the majority of the population of the United States lies. So, if we look at the numbers, only 9 states in the entire 9 states hold 50% of the entire U.S. population. Now,
Well,
the
let me-
entire U.S.
let me-
population
so-
is 325 million people.
9 states hold half the country's population. That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm
9
sorry,
states. Sorry, let me
Okay. No, you
correct
said it
myself.
right. No, you said it right. I just want to make sure I heard it right.
Okay, 9 states. Okay, 9 states hold or has 50% of the entire U.S. population.
That's crazy.
Okay, remember we have 50 states in the union. Remember, 50 states. Remember that 50 states in the union. 9 states has 50% of the entire country's population. That means that if we were to just vote for president based on population alone, that means that only 9 states would be able to say who the president of the United States will be.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
and who are those 9 states? California. I have the list right here. California, which has 40 million people in the state of California, which is the number 1 populated state. And then it's Texas, then it's Florida, then it's New York, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Ohio, Georgia, and North Carolina. Surprisingly, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't think North Carolina had that much people.
So-
but anyways, so only those 9 states will be able to elect the president.
And out of those 9 states, how many are Democratic strongholds? So you got California here. So this is
You have California as a Democratic stronghold.
California,
New York.
New York,
Before this election,
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
3.
Pennsylvania flipped.
Okay,
Michigan.
flipped.
Oh wait, no. It's California, New York, Pennsylvania, Illinois,
Illinois.
and that's it. Okay.
So 1, 2, 3, 4.
4.
So half of the states are Democratic strongholds.
And then you have Texas.
Texas, which I'm
Is
calling
red.
purple.
Well, right now it's
Right, I'm
purple,
calling purple right now.
but historically has been red.
Has been red. Florida.
Florida has historically- it's purple.
Purple. Georgia.
So let's
red.
just get the red one. Let's get the red one.
Yeah. So Texas,
Texas, Georgia, and North Carolina
Yeah.
are red, which is 3. Right?
That looks like a Supreme Court split decision to me. Not really. So, I mean, there's 9. Yeah.
And then we have Florida and Ohio
So
that flip flop.
yeah. So basically, if you look at it, right? Remember, if you said you have Ohio, you have Florida, and New Jersey, right? Well, New Jersey's blue.
New Jersey's blue, but that's an 11.
That's,
If we were-
it's 11?
Yeah, 11.
Okay.
So what we're saying is only 9 states have the most population, right? Of those 9 states, 4 of them,
4 Democrat,
4 Democrats,
3 are Republican,
3 are
and 2
Republican.
are in play.
So they were focused the whole time pretty much in Florida
And
and
Ohio.
Ohio. That's the only 2 states that would actually matter and who wins the presidency. Because that would decide whether it becomes a Democratic president or a
Right.
Republican president.
Even though Trump took Michigan in 2016, but
Yeah.
that's like one of those rare instances, and I
Yeah.
don't get into political strategy. Right?
So those are the 9 states that would be able to vote who the president of the United States is. Everyone else in the country doesn't even matter. Who cares who they voted for? Because their vote doesn't matter. Because there's not enough votes to make a decision on who wins the presidency. Does that make sense? So our argument is, what makes California, Texas, Florida, New York, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Ohio, Georgia, and North Carolina better than every other state? Because of the population, because of diversity, because of economic factors, or just numbers alone, right? Who is to say that, us Californians are better than someone in Nebraska or in Arizona or Nevada, right? Or New Mexico? Or who decides that Pennsylvania is better than Washington and Oregon, or Utah? Who is to say that what makes Georgia more important than Mississippi and South Carolina, right? Or Tennessee, right? Don't their votes count too? Don't their votes matter too? So, pretty much 9 states would only be able to vote for president because those are the most popular states in the entire country, right? So if you're talking about disenfranchisement because of the electoral college, the popular vote actually has more disenfranchisement based on who the presidential candidates will pander to and seek the vote from. And if you look at it, it'll probably be a blue presidency for here into eternity, based on the numbers alone.
Yeah, and
that's California, and so on and so forth.
It's dangerous. It's dangerous to take for the national popular vote, one, because you said it will be a Democratic victory. But, and this is, I'm gonna touch this lightly because I know we're gonna go into this later on. But there's also an underlying argument that's in this. If you know, the Latino vote is gonna be major in 2020, and it's only gonna continue to grow in its importance.
Yes, it is.
Not only that, in the census and a lot of stats are saying that a lot of the U.S. population by 2060 and so forth, a lot of them are going to be of immigrant parents. So they're not even native born. They're immigrant parents, correct? Mm-hmm. So that's another thing. So we got Latinos, we got immigrants. Y'all start getting the picture. Who do you think, based on current rhetoric, will that help?
And fear tactics.
Would that help the Democrats? You will essentially, by eliminating the Electoral College, as of now in current political climate, you're setting up a one-party state. I'm being dead serious. I'm just looking at it. I'm looking at the map, and I'm looking like where. Just look at California.
We're blue.
We're like, I mean, do you know of any Republicans and nearby?
There's few Republicans in office, both in the Senate and the Assembly, and there's few Republicans at the local level, right? Now, people might say, oh, it's a good thing because they're racist. No, Republicans aren't racist.
Democrats
We're conservative,
majorities,
right? In California, we have supermajorities. Now, look at the economic and social conditions here in California alone, okay? We've spoken about the homeless crisis in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, the high taxes, the overregulation, the gas hike, the taxes, the cost of living. Remember, California is number one in poverty, and it's a Democratic stronghold. So I'm just saying, if that's the largest state, the largest populous state is in that condition now with the Democratic Party, just imagine how the country's going to be just with Democrat control.
It's scary. It's scary not because they're Democrats. It's scary because we're not a one-party society. That's one. We believe in everybody's voices to be heard. Mm-hmm. We don't believe in mob rule, like you said. We believe that we are a representative democracy. We're a republic overall. In order to do that, you have to have the elements that create that form of government. And Democrats and those people on the left, under the pretenses and illusions of everybody's voice being heard, they're trying to eliminate that. Mm-hmm. And I am not for that. I'm seeing it here in California.
We're not for it.
I'm seeing it in California. You're starting to see it in Texas, and honestly, man, it's bad.
Now, there are some good policies in the Democratic platform, as well as there's some good policies in the Republican platform. There's some bad platforms in Republican platforms, as well as there's bad policies in the Democratic platform. Mm-hmm. Now, we need to be able in this country to have diversity, right? We always talk about diversity. And that diversity should also be represented in the party system. Yeah. Do we have challenges to the ruling party? Do we have challenges? Does one party challenge the other? Or is it just one party rule? We take supermajority. We don't care what you say. We're going to do our thing anyways, right? So we also have to have that challenges and that diversity in our political system in order to function. Because a large percentage of Americans aren't 100% Republican and 100% Democrats. If you look at studies, and we'll put a link below, large percentage of Americans are moderates and independent. There's some things they like about the Democrats, and there's some things they like about the Republicans. And a large segment of the voter population is becoming independent voters. The Republicans aren't losing a lot, but the Democrats are losing, right? Yeah. And as well as they're losing, they're trying to gain influence, as well as the Republican Party.
Well, they're trying to keep it.
But the largest group of identifiers, or the largest group of political identities, is the independent vote.
Yeah.
There's more and more independents that there are Republicans and Democrats, right? So what is that telling us as Americans? What is that telling us as a voting party? That we don't always agree 100% with Democrats and we don't agree 100% with Republicans. And here in MM Talk, we're the same way. We don't agree with everything Republicans do, and we agree with everything Democrats do, right? So
we hardly agree with that.
But we hardly agree with Democrats. Let's be honest. We hardly agree with Democrats because sometimes their logic.
I gotta throw that joke
It's
in.
just like, wow, really? Like, rationally speaking.
Yeah.
Anyways.
No, you're making a good point.
We're trying to be as moderate as we can.
Yeah.
Right? And we try to show you the facts here in MM Talk. So, Eddie, should the Electoral College be abolished? Should it be improved? Should it stay? What should we do?
I don't get that argument of improving too. I mean, it's fine as is. It's fine as is. Honestly, maybe I need to look into what the arguments for improvement are. But you said it's been. If the horse ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, like
and even the odds, right? Remember I said earlier, only 3 elections, presidential elections.
And that's the thing. Over 3 elections, and man, what's the percentage of that? Hold on, I gotta make some math here. How long is America? So 1776.
The first election was 1789.
Okay,
George Washington.
1789. Okay, 1789 minus 2019. That's 230. Okay, so
230
3 and 230. That's okay. So about 1.3% of that. I mean, because of 1.3% of elections since 1789, we want to abolish the whole system. That is ridiculous.
It's like, would you stop a program because 1% of it is bad? Would you eliminate certain procedures just because 1% of it fails? No. If 99% of the time or 98% of the time it works, you're most likely to keep that 98%. Your odds are to bet for 98% instead of against 98%.
So, no, I will not abolish it. I will keep it. It represents, yes, you do not vote for the president directly, but those electors are your voice. That's the way the system works based on the electoral college.
And now, and based on that, remember that we spoke earlier about tyranny and how tyranny and how President Trump is a tyrant and a dictator. The founding fathers did not want a king. Okay, if you read the letters and the correspondence between the founding fathers and the Constitutional Convention, they advocated. And they fought and they found ways to avoid and prohibit and prevent a dictator and a tyrant from taking office. Okay? You might not agree with certain presidential way of doing things and the way of managing the bureaucracy, but the founding fathers did not want a king or a tyrant or a dictator to rule.
Yeah.
Right? They were afraid. That's why we go back to the mob rule, right? Yeah. If the mob of a large percentage of Americans have control over the presidency, right?
It defeats the purpose. Person.
Yes.
And we elect the wrong person. And what happens when the people do not like that person? I mean, what do? What is he going to say? Well, I had a majority rule. I mean, people voted for me. I had 70% of the popular vote. And then what are you going to say as Americans?
So the Electoral College.
Are you gonna call him a tyrant? And there's not even that. What about voter fraud? What about what about if parties send little goons to other states with like less population and somehow automatically like 800,000 people went in one county that basically swung that state to the other ones? See, it's things you guys got to think about. But for 1%, I'm saying you're not gonna abolish the system. It's ridiculous, and it's not the reason why they want it. What they really want is they want Democratic strongholds to have more say than Republican strongholds or independent strongholds. And that is dangerous. And you should not buy into that argument. And I'll leave it there.
So, here on MM Talk, we are for the Electoral College. We say to keep the Electoral College. It's not perfect. It's not a popular vote. But if only 3 elections, which is 1% of the entire U.S. election system for president. Election history. It's not that bad.
That's pretty dang good.
It's pretty good average, right? So all these fear factors about racism and voter disenfranchisement and people don't have the same vote or the same voice, that's just a way to make you fear the Electoral College and get rid of it. Why? Because in 2016, everyone in the mass media, everyone in the political elite wanted Hillary Clinton to win the presidency. Okay? And she lost it.
It was guaranteed.
All right.
So,
because she lost the presidency, the Electoral College is wrong. Hillary should have been president, and Donald Trump should have lost. And because we have such disdain for this man, we need to get rid of the Electoral College to avoid from him winning again next year, or from any other person in the future from winning.
Yeah, we'll leave it there, but keep an eye on it, guys. Keep an eye on the arguments. It's going to go on. I'm waiting to see it on the Democratic debate, so if it's on there, we'll talk about it. But it's not so far. All you've seen is pundits like Elizabeth Warren and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They're wrong. And
even MSNBC, CNN, all those who are trying to portray this issue that the Electoral College is undemocratic. But the Founding Fathers were wiser, and they understood mob rule and the average electoral voter. And they understood how people voted, how people can be misinformed, and how people can be riled up on misinformation. It happened back in their day. It's happening now in our day. So...
you want to see a revolution through mob rule? Ask France.
And we'll leave it at that. Thank you for tuning in for Talk. Hopefully you enjoyed our broadcast. Please subscribe, share to your friends and family. Tune into our social media on Instagram and Facebook. And stay tuned for the next segment. Like we said, we're here at Talk. We are your hosts, Jaime Moreno.
And Eddie Marmolejo.
And remember, we're tired of it too.
Jaime and I would like to thank you all for tuning into our podcast this week. If this is your first time tuning to Talk and you like the show, we invite you to come back every Thursday. Just hit that subscribe button and the little bell so you're notified when our videos are up. Also, do not forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for any additional notifications. This is Talk, and remember, we're tired of it too.